And it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
Government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that Los Angeles and what am I doing here? For two reasons. One, we haven't been able to communicate it in a way. Let's be clear. I hear it all the time. Cumulative deficit, I can play for the programs many times over.
Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
Welcome back to another night of Shtick with Koolfrogg. You know, so bad. I don't know why I laugh at him so much. So I kind of changed a couple things around here a little bit. I made it so I could actually see Rumble a little bit easier. So all of those sitting over on Rumble, hello, good to see you. Great liquor. Glad you're there. Glad you're there. Everybody over here on the YouTube side, we got Boomer and Suzanne, Daisy Girl, Beautifully Inappropriate. Vicky T is back. It's good to see her. Glad everybody's around. Hello, Axiom. How you doing? Good to see you. So, you know, a little bit of news, a little bit of politics, a little bit of some other stuff to go along with it. We have a tendency to pay attention to elections here, elections there, elections around the world. And we're going to actually get into just a few bit. Okay, let's make sure that I'm not playing too many sounds. So we get into some elections from in and around the world. Here we have Guatemala. He says, why Guatemala's first round elections were so surprising. Again, why is it so surprising? I don't think that it should be as surprising as they're making it sound. This is two candidates from Guatemala's presidency, Sandra Torres, Guatemala's former first lady, and Bernardo Arevalo, a center-left candidate campaigning against the nation's powerful business interests, will head to a runoff on August 20th. So really kind of confusing how they consider him a central left running against the former Sandra Torres, who's the actual nationalist in play. Doesn't sound like they would try to make it anything different than what it already was. But for whatever reason, threw a wrench in their play, as opposed to them just being able to call for Sandra Torres to continue the presidency. Seems as though Bernardo has actually stepped up to the plate, and they're actually going to have to go into a runoff to see who actually comes away with the win on that. So it's really kind of interesting to see how they're calling the center left is the opposition, as opposed to it being anything further to the right than it should be. Because like again, this is the National Socialist, and this person is the center left. It seems as they're not so far away from each other. They're kind of sitting on the same side of that spectrum. It kind of was concerning to me that everybody's looking one way, and they're not actually fighting off the corruption any further. Hello, Shiloh. Hello, Rose. How are you doing? Good to see us. This is Arevalo's surprise success, in particular, is a sign of Guatemala's discontent with corruption and increasing authoritarianism. The current president, Alejandro, is limited to one term in office, but the system that enabled him could continue, in part because of the active role he and his predecessors played in weaponizing it for their own advantage. Guatemala has suffered of violence, poverty, and corruption for decades. Now the military, economic, and political establishment for Pacto de Corruptos has effectively captured the state, eroding democratic institutions and the rule of law in Central America's most populous country. So, kind of sort of makes sense that they're as left as they are, being that they're the most populous area in the country. As far as that goes, it's still kind of sad to believe that they're not even looking at anything that's anything further from center left. Or it's, and they're concerned. Yet they're concerned that it's going to be too far, swing too far away from where they initially wanted it to be, which is the reason for the runoff. So Sunday's elections covered more than just presidency. Guatemalans also voted for vice president, and 160 members of the unicameral legislature, as well as mayors and municipal governments of Guatemala's 340 municipalities and 20 members of Central American Parliament. So they kind of running off of some other kind of parliamentarian stuff as well, which is kind of throws a confusing role into play on who's being what. But I think it's kind of interesting and something that we'll pay attention to in the next few days to see where this particular person will actually end up going, if she will actually be elected the way it would be, or if this center leftist will actually take over. It'd be kind of fun to see anybody that's a little bit to the right of what they're actually explaining going in, but none of that is true. And both of them are adjacent to World Economic Forum in itself. So then North Korea decided to actually make threats towards the United States. So this is North Korea makes new threats targeting the United States. It says tens of thousands of North Koreans gathered for large rallies over the weekend in Pyongyang, where people shouted anti-U.S. slogans and issued warnings about the regime's alleged nuclear weapons stockpile, according to the state-run media outlets. Roughly 120,000 people, including students, reportedly turned out at rallies in the North Korean capital city of June 24th through the 25th. The whole U.S. mainland is within our shooting range, and the imperialist U.S. is the destroyer of peace. Read placards held by mass people in crowded stadiums. In a photo released by the state media that may have been doctored, the rallies were held in mark of the 73rd anniversary of the start of the Korean War, coming amid concerns Pyongyang could soon conduct another launch into the first military spy satellite to boost monitoring of the U.S. military activities after its first attempt failed on May 31st. Nuclear-armed North Korea has been ramping up tension with South Korea and South main allies of the United States by testing various weapons, including its biggest intercontinental ballistic missile. After the Korean War, the United States and North Korea's communist regime never signed a peace treaty. North Korea and South Korea remain technically at war because their 1950 to 1953 conflict ended in an armistice. The conflict was triggered by North Korea when its forces launched a surprise attack on South Korea after famously crossing 38th parallel, unlike that of what Pyongyang has long claimed, according to historians. What's up, Cohagen? Rally goers also proclaimed that North Korea has expanding nuclear weapons and missile program and insisted that their country has the strongest absolute weapon to punish the U.S. imperialists in the war, deterrence for self-defense, which no enemy dare provoke. The Associated Press, some also said they want to initiate a war of revenge against Washington. There are signs of North Korea is planning a huge military parade in Pyongyang where it would likely showcase its new military hardware. Lee Sung-joon, a spokesperson for South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, told AP during a recent briefing that the South's military was closely analyzing the North's presumed parade preparations, but didn't provide specific details. Recent commercial satellite images have shown troop and vehicle movements, and the buildings and structures suggestive of preparations for a parade, likely for the July 27th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Agreement. Former President Donald Trump engaged in disarmament talks in 2019 with Kim Jong-un, dictator of North Korea. Although a deal wasn't reached, Kim has since launched tests of new nuclear missiles under the Biden administration with the goal of being able to reach the United States. Trump has said that he had a good relationship with Kim and that he would again attempt to reach out with the isolated regime in a bid to promote peace with the Korean Peninsula. In 2019, he became the first president to set foot in North Korean soil since 1953 armistice was signed. We'll see what that means. Trump told governors in February 2019 about working with Kim, who had praised Trump for letters. And they're going to praise Trump because they actually like Trump on the Epoch Times. They're going to continue to actually praise him as much as they possibly can for the stuff that he did do. Who also praised Trump for letters several years ago, but he's never had a relationship with anybody from this country and hasn't had lots of relationships anywhere. Before he met with Kim, however, Trump repeatedly criticized the communist leader by calling him Little Rocket Man in 2018 and said that if the North Korean continues to threaten the United States, it'll meet fire and fury. Earlier this month, Trump drew criticism from Republican presidential candidates after he praised Kim for controversially being named for the executive board of UN World Health Organization. That in itself, North Korea being put on the board for World Health Organization, and is kind of disturbing in itself to actually believe that we would actually be okay with them actually being the head of the World Health Organization or having any part in it. It's kind of scary and disturbing in itself. Congratulations to Kim Jong-un, Trump wrote via social media platform Truth Social. In response, candidates such as former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Florida, and Ron DeSantis, and former Vice President Mike Pence criticize his post. Whether it's my former running mate or anyone else, nobody would be praising the dictator in North Korea or praising the leader in Russia who has launched the unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine. Pence told Fox News earlier in June. This is time when we ought to make it clear to the world that we stand for freedom and we stand with those who stand for freedom. However, the Republican hopefuls' criticism for Trump appear to have had little effect on the popularity. Recent polls show that Trump enjoys broad support among Republican voters. For whatever reason, they really went political at the end of that, and it really wasn't supposed to be about them. It was supposed to be about, what you'd actually think it would be. North Korea making threats targeting the United States again, over and over again. Yes, Trump's the only one that's been able to hold them off, but what's Biden doing for us? He's doing absolutely none of this. He's not making any talks with them. He's not paying attention to what they're actually doing. He's not looking to see if they'll actually be able to reach mainland U.S. from Korea itself. From the Korean Peninsula all the way to the United States is ridiculous. But it's not unheard of nowadays. It's not unheard of. So then, while we're looking at North Korea yet one more time, as China's been doing what they've been doing, Biden's Department of Defense informs U.S. congressmen they won't destroy potential spy balloon flying over Montana airspace. Wait a minute. Is this deja vu? Are we now living in, Groundhog's Day? Is that what's happening? It's going to happen yet one more time. We're going to allow a spy balloon to traverse the length of the United States. What's up, Tony? Good to see you. Heidi. Hello, Heidi. In a recent development, the Biden regime's Department of Defense has stated it did not interfere in a potential spy balloon reported over American airspace. The Department of Defense's response has sparked a backlash from Representative Matt Rosendahl of Montana, who criticized the regime's lax approach towards foreign surveillance activities over the United States. Rep. Rosendahl communicated his concern after constituents of Dawson County, Montana, reported tracking a balloon cruising at about 57,000 feet over eastern Montana on Sunday evening. The congressman contacted the DOD and was informed that while they were aware of the balloon, they would not investigate due to its size and the low probability it is conducting surveillance activities. What? We're not going to investigate it? Because of its size and the low probability that it's conducting surveillance? What else is he going to be doing? What else is it going to be doing? There's nothing you can tell me that you got to be kidding me right now. Suzanne, thank you, sweetheart, for $10 donation. Canadian $10 donation from Suzanne. We're going to leave that right there, right on the bottom of that screen for a bit. We'll leave it right there. So, it boggles my mind to actually understand that we're allowing yet another balloon to traverse over the United States. And it's not doing something. It's just flying. It's just a balloon. Just a balloon. Going to bed. Sleep well, dear. Thanks again. Why are we dealing with balloons over and over again? This is not a U.S. asset. This is a significant national security concern, and the Biden regime's dismissal of the potential risk is not justifiable. If the spy balloon incident in February has taught us anything, it's that Montanans are vigilant and concerned about what's flying over their state. They deserve to know their government's taking the security seriously, said Rosendale. Now, is how far is this gonna continue to traverse its way over the lands of Montana into where? Into Wyoming? Is it gonna drop something? Is it just gonna continue to, move along in a controlled pattern? The reference in the spy balloon on February points out to an earlier incident where unidentified aerial equipment was reported in Montana's airspace. Rosendale and other citizens have alarmed by what they saw as an inadequate response from the federal government. The Biden regime was aware of the Chinese spy balloon in U.S. airspace since the previous Saturday, January 28th. The Biden administration initially ignored the threat, hoping the balloon would not be detected. But after amateur photographers captured the balloon flying over Montana, the Biden White House had to admit they knew about the balloon. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said the U.S. military had to shut down communications and movements last week as the China spy balloon flew over strategic military bases during its week-long flyover the United States. You think this one's not going to do the same thing? It's not going to strategically maneuver itself over the top of military bases? It's just a random balloon. Nothing to see here. Don't look at the random balloon. The random balloon in the sky isn't going to hurt you. It's just going to take surveillance of you. The balloon was not shot down after it went offshore. Joe Biden claimed the spy balloon gathering intel over the U.S. military bases was not a major breach. Liar. How is that not a major breach? National Security Council finally admitted that the Chinese spy balloon was able to gather intelligence from several sensitive American military bases. So, it goes into the last balloon, but there's a current one. There's a current one. This one. This one that's over eastern Montana, which, in my opinion, would actually take and maneuver itself over the top and over, into, South Dakota, Wyoming-ish area. And what is it going to actually do? What is it? How many air bases are we going to let it traverse over? How much information are we going to allow it to collect as it's surveilling nothing, supposedly? Because it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just another balloon. Just another balloon. Don't worry about it. Are you scared? Y'all hit that like button for me. That's the button we like you to push. So then, trying to get away. Let's kind of move this thing down the way. That one's kind of, I don't know. So, Joe Biden's such a big fool. For whatever reason, as opposed to just leaving it alone and not saying anything, he felt that it was necessary for him to stutter through yet one more thing. And he went ahead and he stuttered through another speech today. It says, Biden, on Wagner mutiny, we were not involved. So Joe Biden's trying to state that the United States had nothing to do with Prignovich and the Wagner group, had nothing to do with it whatsoever. He didn't, So this is the United States and its allies have nothing to do with the mutiny undertaking of Prigozhin and the private Russian army known as the Wagner Group that occurred in Russia in June 23rd to 24th. The president commented on a short-lived insurrection during the White House remarks on June 26, saying that he had been in constant communication with U.S. allies over the weekend to prepare for a range of possible outcomes. They agreed with me that we had to make sure we gave Putin no excuse. Let me emphasize, we gave Putin no excuse to blame this on the West or blame this on NATO. We made clear that we were not involved, Biden said. So, according to Biden, Joe Biden says they were not involved. The United States was not involved. The United States had zero things to do with this insurrectionist, whatever type of abilities that this Wagner group potentially had that were shut down. That seemed a little staged, but for whatever reason, just so happened to not be staged. Not staged. The United States had nothing to do with it if it was. The White House official immediately downplayed Biden's remarks, indicating that it wasn't a call to remove Putin. However, when commemorating the anniversary of Ukraine invasion in February, Biden said President Putin chose this war. Every day the war continues is his choice. I mean, kinda. But if he backs down, then what? Then what? Then you get control over the area that, was not supposed to be contested over. Putin has said that the special military operation in Ukraine is intended to allow Russian-speaking people in the eastern part of that country to speak their own language. He has also accused the West of provoking Russia by expanding NATO and providing weapons to Ukraine. The mutiny, Prigozhin's Wagner Group has played an increasing role in Russian war in Ukraine over the past year, particularly as losses by regular Russian troops mounted. At the same time, Prigozhin, who had been an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, became increasingly critical of the Russian defense minister Sergei Shoigu and the Chief General Staff Valery Gerasimov. Prigozhin claimed that on the 24th of June that two senior leaders launched a deliberate attack on the Wagner troops, killing about 30 fighters. He then led his troops out of Ukraine to seize the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, a major military hub. I don't see it that he actually made it the ability to even seize this particular area of Rostov-on-Don. It seems as though whenever you look at any of it, any of the information, that he came nowhere near doing such a thing. It was just that he had a bunch of guys that were with him to actually say, yeah, let's go back and let's try, performing some kind of coup that won't actually take place. Putin denounced Prigozhin as a traitor and vowed him put down the rebellion. Within a day, the Wagner force moved north toward Moscow, reaching a position 125 miles from the city. During the advance, Wagner forces shot down several military helicopters in a communications plane, killing at least 15 people, according to Russian media reports. Despite the facts that the insurrection was a challenge to Putin's leadership, was believed to have been weakened by the heavy losses of Ukraine, and Russian leader quickly agreed to terms for ending the incident. The incident was ended, very shortly thereafter. I'm not even going to continue through this. We actually kind of covered this last night between myself and America's Church on, where we actually believed that this Wagner group was actually nothing. And if it was something, just to, reiterate, according to what they're saying, is it had nothing to do with Joe Biden or the U.S. The U.S. had no say, and NATO had no say in what happened with this group. This group went back on Putin on their own. I don't know if that makes them look better or worse. Why did you have to actually make a statement saying that you didn't have anything to do with it? Because you were being questioned too many times? Did you have something to do with it? So okay, well, let's make an official statement. Let's make an official statement because you're being asked. He looks like shit. They need to allow this man to sit on his porch and enjoy his nights that he has left on this planet, as opposed to marching them out in front of us like they are. Disgusting. So then I keep on actually just keep screens up. But I don't. Let's just do this. We'll put it to that side. This is what is Biden's obsession with using F-16s to kill other Americans? It says alleged President Joe Biden is on his ban assault rifles kick again because of the government apparently needs to keep firearms out of the hands of law-abiding citizens in the hands of meth-addled whoremonger scumbags like his son. One consistent component of his stump speech is a line of nonsense that essentially boils down to us not needing real guns to fight government tyranny, because his government will unleash the F-16s and an uppity peasants if you fail to obey your elite masters. I'm not persuaded by the argument that says you are crazy for thinking you need guns to resist tyranny, and also we will murder you and your family if you attempt to resist tyranny. Eric Swalwell, the Fletcher Shycom, Tramp Defiler, got a credit agent Fang for going above and beyond the call of booty, went even one better. Toots wanted to nuke us, so perhaps the demented dictator is just chill, limiting himself and unleashing the Air Force on the American people. Yet one can sense a certain undercurrent of eagerness to get it on, running through those unveiled threats against patriots, as if the cretins uttering them have the secret desire to rid themselves of us troublesome rubes once and for all. How hard would they try to pass up the opportunity if it presented itself? Actually hard. Or Waco. Oh, well, better light it up. Hard. The senior leadership of current woke military is probably willing to play along. Though, when they aren't waving the pride flag, they're waving the white one. It's been 3 decades since they won a war, and they probably feel that they are due. But it remains unclear why military pseudo professionals might think they will do better against 100 million patriots here at home against when the brass did so poorly against a few 100,000 fanatical hill tribesmen half a global way. At least a grizzle does puppet like Biden has an excuse for being wrong. He is always stupid and evil and corrupt, and now he's added a layer of senility to his being dippo failure. It's easy to point out the limitations of military power in the face of Vietnamese and Afghans, and it's easy because those are entirely appropriate examples of sight. Well, not really entirely appropriate. The Vietnamese and Afghans had nowhere near the kind of advantages American patriots have against the garbage president unleashing his woke U.S. military on his political opponents. I thought that was actually a very interesting little, very well written about what is actually currently happening here in the United States. And yet, Joe Biden, yet one more time, over and over again, will continue to tell you exactly that you don't, that your guns aren't going to be enough to resist or to take over the government. You're going to need F-16s if you think that you're going to get anything. And for him to threaten us in any way, shape, or form to actually continue to take away our guns in the means of actually saying that taking away our guns is going to actually save other people's lives is ridiculous. It's a lie. You're not going to come take away anybody's guns. And just stop trying. Stop trying. All these red tape laws are against our Second Amendment. They've been against our Second Amendment since the beginning. And this fool, over and over again, F-16s. You need your F-16s. You need your F-16s over and over again. Ignorant old fool. I got to find a clip of that and actually just have it available. I'll do that. Sounds fun, huh? Everybody still with me? What's up, Grimsbar? March. Or like wheel, am I right? Not sure. Not sure what you're saying to me. But okay. Jonathan Turley accuses Merrick Garland of criminal obstruction to protect Biden and mislead Congress. Since legal scholars Jonathan Turley put Merrick Garland on notice and accused the Democrat President Joe Biden's Attorney General of criminal obstruction in leading Congress. Professor Turley warns that Garland has been abusing his position to protect the Biden family from investigations. Turley wrote, and now these whistleblowers are reportedly telling Congress that they were actively frustrated in their efforts to investigate, as Merrick Garland was insisting that there was no interference or limitations. This included preventing in an effort to search a guest house of President Joe Biden. IRS officials Gary Shapley allegedly recalled that Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf agreed that there was more than enough probable cause for the physical search warrant there, but the question was whether the juice was worth the squeeze. Wolf allegedly said that they could never get approval for the search despite the sufficiency of the evidence. Really? No matter how sufficient the evidence is, you have no approval. You get no approval no matter what, because I warrant it to be not sufficient enough to actually go obtain the evidence. If there's evidence and there's actual legit evidence, I think it needs to actually all be brought up. Let's go. Let's play this game. Let's have some fun, and let's point fingers at both sides. Because if we're going to do anything, we do it fair. Even more disturbing, the allegations of the Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss sought to bring charges against the 53-year-old who both the District of Columbia and Southern California last year was denied both times. That directly contradicts statements made by Congress by Attorney General Garland. Democrats and pundits have repeatedly cited the fact that Weiss was a Trump appointee, and thus the light plea bargain shows that there was no case to be made. However, these sources are suggesting that Weiss tried and was rebuffed in his effort to prosecute in 2 different jurisdictions. There's also an allegation that Wolf gave Hunter's legal team a heads up that investigators were moving in Search's Northern Virginia storage unit that Wolf again objected to the effort to secure a search warrant. The only way to establish the truth of any of this would be to call Weiss, Wolf, and others to Congress. I agree. Call them up. Let's go. Let's bring them in front of Congress. Let's march them out there. Let's speak to them and let us know exactly what's going on. I bet that would be a very interesting conversation. While such efforts are routinely refused to the Justice Department, these allegations, if true, would raise both potentially criminal and impeachable questions. This is ample basis for Congress to use its oversight authority. I recently wrote that Garland, by his own measures, has failed the Attorney General in restoring trust in his department. However, this is far more serious than allegations of negligence. It would constitute a knowing effort to delay and obstruct efforts to investigate the Biden family and to mislead Congress. That's all they've been doing the whole time. That's all they've been doing the whole time, and they've been misleading them over and over again. Just be like, oh, there's nothing there. Don't look at that. Look the other way. It's okay. No, it's not okay. The evidence also creates new problems of President Biden, who has repeatedly claimed that presidential candidates as president that he had no knowledge of any foreign dealings of his son. Bullshit, you didn't. Those statements were long ago proven patently false. The laptop includes pictures of appointments of Hunter's foreign business associates with Joe Biden. There's also a recording of Joe Biden discussing the Times report on December 12, 2018, detailing Hunter's dealings with Ye Jingming, the head of the CFC, China Energy Company. Over and over again, they keep on pointing out these facts. But there's so many people that are so ignorant to the point they don't want to look at it. They don't want to read it. And no, we keep on pointing it out over and over and over again. And some of you may just be like, oh my Lord, we're actually going through this again. Yes, we're going through this again. This shit is not funny anymore. It's not making sense. It's not making sense on how much evidence is actually right there, right in front of people. They're unwilling to actually share it with all the way whole and complete. They've taken one of my episodes down because they think that some of the stuff that was actually gone through with the Hunter Biden stuff goes beyond their means. So I mean, if that's the case, they have to be afraid of letting the public know too much about anything that's going on with this Biden family and the corruption that had been there and is continuously there, showing a threat towards humanity in itself, in my opinion. To actually kind of show a little bit of potential. I'm glad that they're doing it, I guess. So it says Senate Republicans seek to block Biden from declaring climate national emergency. If you can declare some kind of national emergency, it's like creating a police state. It'd be like creating a police state, and you're going to straight out here. Military would run everything. We would have no say over in most of about anything. The government would be pretty much shut down for the most. It's really not stable in the United States any longer. It seems like we're very, very unstable. Install and say secrets. Yeah, those two. Senate Republicans seek to block Biden from declaring climate national emergency. Like I said, I'm glad they're doing it. Senator Shelley Moore Capito and 9 of her Senate Republican colleagues are co-sponsoring legislation to bar President Biden from doing what many environmentalists within Congress want him to do: declare a national emergency based on the claims about climate change. The Biden administration has repeatedly governed by executive overreach, when it comes to energy and environmental regulations, ignoring the law and doing so without congressional approval. These regulations have made us less energy independent, led to higher prices for consumers, and created uncertainty for employers and workers across the country. The Real Emergencies Act would ensure that president cannot go further by declaring a national emergency, which would grant him more executive authority and grow the size of the government, all in the name of climate change. Joining Capito and co-sponsors are Senators John Barrasso, Bozeman, Kramer, Loomis, Marshall, Sullivan, Ricketts, and Wicker. Senator Hoeven is also a co-sponsor, but unlike the other co-sponsors, isn't a member of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. A companion bill was introduced in the House of Representatives by August Pfluger. Capito's proposal would prevent the president from issuing a climate change inspired national emergency declaration based on the National Emergencies Act, the Stafford Act, and the Public Health Services Act of Section 319. Those three laws provide the current legal basis of presidential declarations of national emergency. Again, under a national emergency, it really isn't something that is feasible for us to actually go under. Imposing military law across the land, and it would actually create some odd things happening in almost every single neighborhood, in every single town, that we really all would not be happy with. I really don't think this is actually safe. And we need to hope that these senators can actually get this bill up and going and get it passed, where he can't actually claim this being a national emergency, as I don't feel it's a national emergency. I really don't. I'd like to hear anybody else's opinion than for climate change, and where they can actually show me there's proof that the Earth has changed its climate also drastically, that even within the last week, being told that predictions from 5 years ago were supposed to already occur, and they're nowhere different. Water's just still about the same height. Yeah, they seem a little bit warmer. Winters aren't so drastic as they used to be. You used to get feet and feet of snow, which I got around here, but at the same time it wasn't as much as usual. It says Biden has been under intense pressure from hundreds of environmental activist groups that hope to take advantage of the increased federal power of spending by the government that would follow such a declaration. In June 2022 and July 2022, Biden appeared to be on the verge of issuing such a declaration, but at the last minute backed off and issued a set of related executive orders. However, those orders didn't mobilize federal powers and resources to the same degree as a national emergency declaration. Biden's failure to act sparked widespread protests among environmentalists, including Jung-Soo, Energy Director and Climate Law Institute at the Center of Biological Diversity. So that being said, there's issues that hopefully the Senate can actually get a bill passed to actually stop the ridiculous talk of declaring climate emergencies by our one and only fearless potato in himself. So then This is kind of interesting. I don't know how much of this I can actually go through. There's a Trump speech, an old tape that had surfaced to go along with the 37 counts. I really don't think that I can actually cover this. I'm concerned with the topic on hand with it. They really don't like Trump on YouTube. I've always had issues doing airing anything that was Trump, and it doesn't actually show enough of the transcript for me just to read it out. It's missing a couple sections, a couple important sections out of it. I'll see if I can't do something with that within the next day and put that up on Rumble. Go Hagen says climate change is real. We couldn't have handled recycling. We aren't fixing the climate as it needed fixing. Paid China to do it. They dumped it in the ocean. Well, interesting as that is, Minnesota had very, very high regulations. It required recycling programs to actually be a big thing where we separated our plastics from our papers from our whatever. I come here to South Dakota and there's no recycling program. There's no recycling program. The one thing that, you know, my brother-in-law owns a business, so we can actually use his cardboard recycler to recycle cardboard. But anything else, no. There's no recycling program around here. You throw it in the trash just like we did when we were kids. It's not getting treated anything different than the states that actually do recycling programs. They just bring it to a different facility to burn it, smelt it, melt it, do whatever they need to do. Because it was all a scam. I mean, it can be all a scam. I've heard of them actually sending, recyclable plastics back to China. And certain boats go missing. It's not unheard of. I get you. Supreme Court throws Louisiana appeal, making way for new congressional map. So we've actually been talking about Alabama's maps and Louisiana's maps and a couple of other states that have been having issues with congressional maps when it goes to actually dividing up the population for House members. There's always seems to be some discrepancy, some big discrepancy on where they actually draw the lines, where the lines are gerrymandered through, and who gets to draw the map, who actually gets to put and break up different groups of people, because that way they can limit the other from being able to select who they wish. So this is U.S. Supreme Court ruled today that another congressional map may have to be redrawn amid claims that it inappropriately dilutes the influence of black voters in the state. So they're going to go along. They're going to go along with that demand of it actually being redrawn, and they're going to make it be that it needs to be redrawn. So this is Writ of certiorari before judgment is dismissed as improvidently granted. Just can't read tonight, apparently. This stay heretofore entered by the court on June 28th, 2022, is vacated. The court wrote before it said that the case needs to be resolved before congressional elections in Louisiana on November 2024. So, they have a better part of a year in some to actually go ahead and redraw these maps and get them correct, get them passed along their court of appeals, and hopefully back to and not back to here, back to SCOTUS. They can actually get it covered in the Court of Appeals on where it should actually have lines drawn that aren't separating people's right and will. When you actually start dividing certain groups, it doesn't matter which group you're dividing. Really doesn't actually put up the correct people to actually speak for the people. It isn't clear if there is a dissent. The order was unsigned. The justice had taken up the case last year, but put it on hold pending their ruling of a similar case from Alabama, which they issued in a 5-4 ruling on June 8th. On June 26th, the justices dismissed the appeal by Louisiana Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin and a federal judge's ruling that asserted the map were drawn by the Republican-led state legislature and the House districts likely discriminated unlawfully based on race. Because they're assuming that this guy, because he's a Republican, would have actually go ahead and actually do such a thing and discriminate against the others, because that's what Republicans do nowadays. Oh, okay. Thanks for lying to me. Thanks for lying to me. U.S. District Judge Shelley Dick, the appointee of President Barack Obama last year, directed Louisiana legislature to create 2 rather than just 1 House district where black voters represent the majority of the voters, a decision that could boost Democratic chances of regaining control next year of the House. The June 26 order follows the court's rejection earlier this month of a congressional redistricting map in Alabama that also unfroze the Louisiana case. In both the Alabama and Louisiana cases, plaintiffs had claimed that black voters are a majority of just 1 congressional district in their respective states. Lower courts had argued that the maps raised concern that black voting power had been diluted, which goes in violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. State officials of Louisiana were sued last year over a congressional map approved by Republicans in the state legislature that, according to multiple reports, made 1 into 6 congressional districts majority black. According to multiple reports, made 1 of its 6 congressional districts majority black. So they want to have 6 of them be majority black. They want all of them to actually go the way they want them, as opposed to the way lines could be drawn. They're going to draw them the way they want them. You're going to see these weird exclave enclave things of majority drawn map. It's not going to be very fun to actually see. And they're just going to continue to see what they can do to each one of these states that had been red for so long, and see if they can't actually go and change them to be blue states, purple states that don't have any, congressional drawings that are actually accurate to the way it should be for either side. They need to stop dividing up the states like they do and just make it like one big state thing, where you get so many representatives. And I know it goes against the general consensus of whatever it is now is 700,000 people per representative. There's towns of millions, and you're just going to sit there and split them up and dissect them wherever you decide to. You're like, oh, this side of the street goes there, this side, the other side of the street goes to this other place. It doesn't really make any sense any longer, and I think some of that needs to be rethought and maybe redrawn and refigured out for something better. The games on both sides are ridiculous. I'm with you on that, Cohagen. They really are. It's both sides sitting there being like, well, we want it drawn this way. Well, we want it drawn this way. Well, stop drawing lines. Just stop drawing the lines. Like, there's so many people that need representation, and this is how many representatives for each state need. And maybe there's something else that can be figured out to actually get proper representation. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are concerned about how they're being represented or who is representing them. Electoral districts in the United States are redrawn each decade to reflect population changes as measured by the national census. Last taken in 2020. In most states, such redistricting is done by a party in power, which can lead to map manipulation or partisan gain. Of course it would. Of course it's gonna. And that's where the two sides need to stop. And I mean, as much as I hate it, maybe the AI should go ahead and redraw the district maps. Democrats have long accused Republicans of exploiting state legislative majorities to draw electoral maps to dilute the clout of Black and other minority voters. Republicans have said the consideration of races drawing electoral maps must be limited. When the Louisiana legislature passed the map in February 2022, Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards vetoed it, criticizing the plan for failing to include a second Black majority district. Then the GOP legislature voted to override the veto. So not all six, just two. So only two of them. So that they want to actually, so then I thought it sounded like out of six they had one. So if it was six, they only had one, and they want two of them. It still doesn't give them a majority of anything. It just gives them a little bit of a swing. It's really not. Why would they not give it to them? Give it to them. Let them have it. If they want a full Black district, maybe they'll actually find somebody that's intelligent enough to actually step up to the plate and really want to actually do good for his community and actually feels that he can actually fix something. No matter which side of the aisle he decides to run on. The map was challenged by Black voters and civil rights groups in multiple lawsuits. The plaintiffs said the Republican drawn unlawfully packed large numbers of Black voters into a single district and dispersed the rest into 5 others into numbers too small to enable them to elect the preferred candidates. Erdogan's office didn't respond by press time to a request by the Epoch Times for comment. Of course he didn't. They never do. In petition to the Supreme Court, Erdogan's lawyers wrote that the state redistricting saga began 30 years before the state legislature received the 2020 decennial census data, adding that after redistricting was done in 1990, the state legislature twice tried to redraw congressional maps to include 2 majority-minority congressional districts. Both times, his office wrote, the maps pinned East Baton Rouge Parish as a population anchor for the second majority-minority district, which extended north along the Mississippi River into Louisiana's Delta region, and then across the top of the state. Court struck both maps as racially gerrymanders that violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. But in Dick's ruling last year, he argued that plaintiffs have demonstrated they will suffer from irreparable harm if voting takes place in the 2022 Louisiana congressional elections based on the redistricting plan that violates federal law. There can be no do-over and no redress for voters whose rights were violated and votes diluted by challenged plan. It really seriously sounds like no matter what they do, no matter which side draws or how they draw it, they're just like, no, that doesn't work. That goes against gerrymandering rules because it shows too much of a weird stint, and it disallows the movement of people into and around their voting polls like they need to be. It's really kind of disturbing to see how much gerrymandering has been going on for as long as we can possibly think. This is not something new. This is something that happens almost on a regular basis. Every single election season, you see some kind of you see something happen that comes out of the Supreme Court. So then, Supreme Court went ahead and they were fine with what they had done. Just trying to set this screen up here. So the Supreme Court has 5 more things that to pay attention to here in the near future. When I said near future, like some of this happens in the morning here. So present this screen. This is off the hills. The Supreme Court is set to release the next opinions Tuesday morning, with several landmark cases still to be handed down, with just days left until the summer recess. The court did not indicate Tuesday will be the final decision day, meaning at least one additional day is likely later in the week. Here are 5 decisions to watch for out of the Supreme Court. Affirmative action. They're going to be pushing the affirmative action bill again, something that we'll probably be paying attention to. Since the Supreme Court is weighing in future race-conscious admissions policies in 2 separate lawsuits against Harvard University and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Colleges nationwide are watching closely on how the decision may require changes to their admission practices. The decision could append affirmative action programs nationwide by overturning the court's 2003 landmark decision, Grutter-Bollinger, that allowed the narrowly tailored use of race in admissions decisions to further a compelling interest in obtaining educational benefits that flow from diverse student body. Student affairs admission, led by anti-affirmative action advocate Edward Blum, has been challenged in the 2 schools' policies for nearly a decade. In the case against UNC, the public university SFFA argued race-conscious admissions policies couldn't comply with the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. So then there's the student debt one. Student debt one should actually be fairly interesting to actually see if they actually strike that down. They should actually strike it down. Shouldn't be something that should actually be held up and signed off by anyone whatsoever. Nobody should be liable for anybody else's student loans. As I have my own student loans, yeah, it would be great to have them actually just erased and never have to worry about them ever again. Have them just be paid off now. That'd be awesome. I'd love it. But, I'm not going to ever sit there and be like, no, I think that you all need to pay for my stuff in that way, shape, or form. There's no way. There's no way that I'm going to say you need to pay for my student loans or anything else in any of my bills that I have to actually pay. Same-sex wedding websites, so it's easier for same-sex partners to go get married without having to sit there and go through the their own proceedings to actually be sure that they actually can get married. There's some kind of weird thing where you don't just get to get married. In some states, when you actually go to get married, you have to go to the courtroom or the courthouse, whatever. You put in the application. You put in the application to get married, and then you figure out where you're going to get married, how you're going to get married, and they actually tell you if it's something that they see as okay, and then you can actually go get married. It wasn't something, yeah, I got married on day 7, but at the same time, it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. We still had to actually wait the few days. We couldn't go get married right away. We had to wait a few days. We had to wait for them to actually get back to us and say that it was okay and cleared. Something that happens. So then, for same sex to actually be able to go for it, through a website and to make it easier for them. I mean, I guess if you need to closet yourself to be able to, enjoy your own opinion, maybe that's something that you need to actually, question about yourself about. Why am I getting this stupid ad? I don't want stupid ads. Go away. Go away. Stupid. Employee religious accommodations. Why is this doing this to me? Are you kidding me? Screw you, the hill. Employee religious accommodations. A former postal worker sued the U.S. Postal Service for being disciplined for missing scheduled Sunday shifts to deliver Amazon packages. Gruff says working Sundays would violate his religious beliefs and the rest of the day. In rest during the Sabbath, Gruff ultimately opted to resign from his job rather than face termination. He contends with Postal Service is required to accommodate his religious views under Title 7 Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employers from discriminating against the employee because of the religious beliefs. As far as that goes, I agree with them. Over and over again. Will this just let me close this stupid pop-up window? Are you kidding me right now? Stop. Go away. Why'd the hill go ahead and ruin their stuff? All right. So then election laws, a dispute over North Carolina's congressional map. So then, we just went through Louisiana's congressional map laws. It looks like North Carolina is going to be actually going through the same deal. You're going to be looking at gerrymandering laws and what's best for their population so they get the best representation. North Carolina in itself, it can be, a swing in itself. I'm pretty sure it's nothing that's really predominantly one or the other. But it's mainly, I would suggest probably more of a Republican thing with blue cities, just like most other cities. So those are the 5 that we'll be actually looking at throughout the week here to see what actually happens. We'll probably hear about some of these tomorrow, as most of them should actually be heard, and maybe we'll hear the rest of them by the end of the week. Should be fun in itself. I'm excited. Let's all get excited. No? You don't want to get excited? Minnesota's got a couple things going on. I always default back to Minnesota. That's home for me. It's home for me. It always will be. Minnesota employers just sprint to rewrite marijuana policies amid new law. So this is Chamber of Commerce and attorneys are fielding questions about the crafting policy as they approach August 1st, when recreational marijuana use becomes legal in the state. This is the new marijuana laws in Minnesota are causing headaches for employers. Paul Blum, who deals with complexity of them as a member of his North Loop Condo Board and Chief Executive Home Health Care Agency. The state joins 22 others on August 1st when it decriminalizes the recreational use of cannabis. The shift of emboldening people to smoke marijuana is in new places, even if not permissible under Minnesota's new law. At his condominium complex, he had to remind neighbors their smoke shouldn't infiltrate the common corridors. In the workplace, a person's job determines whether they can be tested for THC before or during employment. For instance, Blum's employees can be tested because they're healthcare workers. It is also legal for any employer to have policies that limit the use of cannabis on site. Of course they can. Of course they can. This isn't going to be just some, oh, okay, you're now legal to do whatever you'd like to do with all the marijuana you want. The guy needs to smoke a joint and chill the F out. Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, he has a point, and his point is that though it's legalized, doesn't mean you actually get to go walk around smoking it within anybody else's building or vicinity or whatever, just because you feel that you're now legal to do so. Not that I haven't ever smoked on the streets of St. Paul or anywhere else for that matter in Minnesota. It's really something that's it had already been super lax for them to actually go to the point of becoming the 21st state. Just kind of goes along with the thoughts of RFK Jr. and going ahead and legalizing. Just go ahead, legalize marijuana federally. Let it go back to the states to actually do whatever they wish to do. And then you can just, have a happy and free group of people that just love to sit around and smoke the marijuana right now at 20 after the hour. Yes, very much so. Perfect timing. We're going to go into some other news. Stay away from the politics for a little bit. The politics gets kind of dry after a while. You keep on going through the same thing every single day. You get kind of to the point where you're just like, oh, we already talked about this. We're going to do it again. Yeah, we're going to cut off to the news. So, digging through Minnesota stuff or whatever, it's like Minnesota dairy farms lose buyer after milk from Hastings Creamery seeped into water supply. This is after regulators disconnected the creamery from the sewer for leaking raw milk into the city's wastewater plant. Some farmers who supply the creamery have reached breaking point. Lewiston, Minnesota, is this dairy farmer Kerry Tweeton leans back and doffs his dusty ball cap, explaining that latest axe to fall in his family farm. It's not just the potential loss of milk in schools or plummeting prices that worry him, but troubles facing the farm's buyer, the historic Hastings Creamery. The creamery buys from dozens of Minnesota and Wisconsin dairy farmers and daily processes 150,000 pounds of raw milk in its plant, which was built in 1955. Since June, however, that facility has been cut off from the sewer after repeated wastewater violations. According to Met Council estimates, over Mother's Day weekend, more than 14,000 gallons of raw milk and over 6,000 gallons of cream leaked from the creamery's tanks, sending a frothy foam river through aeration tanks, clogging up the Hastings wastewater treatment plant, which feeds into the Mississippi River. For now, the creamery is hauling wastewater to a plant in St. Paul that Met Council said the the interruption is more than an inconvenience to the dairy industry that operates under the often ruthless economic paradigm. In 2019 alone, Minnesota lost more than 300 dairy farms. Expansion can breathe new life into one farm, while those larger herds can gobble up neighbors' milk contracts. We continue to work with the Hastings Creamery, the City of Hastings, and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture to find a solution that supports local milk producers while protecting community water supply. Tweetin 41 cited the Minnesota Department of Agriculture statistic noting that the dairy cow spurs of $25,000 of economic impact in a small town. I didn't think the Met Council really understood the ramifications of what that does to operations out there, and then we can't take our milk there to get it processed. The creamery told the Met Council it did not know how much was leaked, admitting staff didn't keep logs. It also, not the company's first violation, concerns about the creamery's discharges surfaced last fall. So this particular creamery, I know this creamery. I've actually been past it. We've actually gone to it several times, up and down, taking trips up and down the Mississippi River. They actually had some very good ice cream. But when it comes down to it, is the inability to process it properly is contaminating not even the Vermilion, but the Mississippi River, which can be very, very damaging to that area. And I like I said, I know the area very, very well. It's kind of disturbing to actually see more contaminants being dumped into that river from where it is, as the Mississippi River actually does start itself all the way up in Minnesota. By the time it makes itself past St. Paul, it's already contaminated enough by 3M to get even more contaminated now from this for as long as it has been. It's kind of disturbing to see what kind of ecosystem the Mississippi River even has left, if it has any. And what happens to these farms, these other farms that have been actually, being produced through there, that have actually supplied large places like this Quitchup, the Quitchup or whatever that's a very large gas distributor out of that region of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Midwest style gas station or whatever in itself. They've actually, major producer for a lot of these places. It's kind of scary to actually believe that they're going to continue to actually contaminate water supplies over and over again. They go and they plug up the wastewater plant. So then the wastewater plant doesn't have any way to actually continue to pump anything clean into the city. That would shut down city water for a bit. They need to pay attention to what they're doing, if they hadn't been paying attention already. I really had a lot of weird things up for the night. Might be a short night tonight. Yes. I look at certain things and I kind of look at it again and be like, I don't want to go through that. We'll go through this though, because it seems like this might be just be number two. This might be number two. So this billionaire James Crown, 70, was killed in a horror car crash at a private Aspen racetrack after he failed to turn and hit a barrier. Businessmen vowed to make Chicago the safest city in America. One of the most dangerous cities in America. He wanted to actually turn it to be one of the safest. All of a sudden, just so happens to crash in a horrific car crash in Aspen racetrack. This is a billionaire who had vowed to make crime-riddled Chicago the safest city in U.S. had died of tragic car crash in a racetrack in Colorado. Jim Crown, was celebrating his 70th birthday as a members only Aspen Motorsports Park on Sunday when his vehicle was hit an impact barrier. Mr. Crown was involved in a motor vehicle crash in Woody Creek racetrack, resulting in fatal injuries. Chief Deputy Coroner Audrey Keith said the official cause of death was pending an autopsy. However, multiple blunt force trauma is evidence and the manner accidental. The business magnate and CEO of Henry Crown and Company, which oversees Aspen Skiing Company and his own operates the mountains and ski area facilities. The Crown, took himself out doing what he loved all so much. He was actually, enjoying life for what it was, and made an accident while having fun. The Crown family is deeply saddened in the sudden pass of Jim Crown. In an accident earlier today, the family requests that their privacy be respected as a difficult time. Further details regarding plans for the memorial to remember Jim's remarkable life will be released in later date. Crown's father, Lester Crown, told the Chicago Sun-Times he was driving a race car and it hit a wall going around a curve. There's never a finer human being in every way. He was the leader of the family, both intellectually and emotionally, and he looked out for everybody. Again, I'm glad that he actually went out in his own way. He was actually having fun. It's sad and disturbing that he actually crashed his car. I think the more interesting is what this guy was actually about, as he's actually Tycoon's family ranked 34th richest in America in Forbes 2020 with an estimated about $10.2 billion. We hear $1 billion and $10.2 billion. We're like, that's nothing nowadays. I mean, is it really nothing? I mean, $10.2 billion is an awful lot of money. Awful lot of money for somebody to actually go missing, or unalived, doing what it is that they enjoy so much, whether it be going down in submarines or crashing their cars into walls. How billionaires are the ones that are actually being self-deleted, per se. Kind of interesting in itself. We did do the three. We did the three that we were supposed to do. Okay, we'll leave it with a fun. I guess it's fun. It's kind of disgusting and kind of disturbing in itself. Here you go. The party never stops. Admiral Rachel Levine declares Summer of Pride. Doesn't want it to end. He says June has been so much fun. June has been so much fun that we need to spread it. We need to spread it so much further and wider than we ever had before. And let's go ahead and let's ruin the whole summer of 2023. Let's make it the summer of pride. Rear Admiral Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary of Health in U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, has declared that the Pride Month is coming to an end. This should be a summer of pride. We should just all be so super proud. Happy Pride Month. And actually, let's declare it a summer of pride. Happy Summer Pride. That's the quote. That's the quote right here. Happy Pride Month. And actually, let's declare it a summer of pride. Happy Summer Pride. Those are the words that came out of this fool's mouth. This from 400 to about 100 after. Yes. You see, as Vicky says, that is what we're looking for. We're looking for more men to dress as women.
Hello, my name is Admiral Rachel Levine, and I have the honor of being the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month. And actually, let's declare it a summer of pride. Happy Summer of Pride.
Do we need to? Is it something that's necessary? We need to actually do this to ourselves. We need to succumb to the disgustingness of what is pride over and over again, because you don't feel that you've actually, put yourself out there enough to let it be known that you, this person right here that's sitting on the screen, Miss Levine, Ms. Levine, I mean, no disrespect, mister, but how can you be the face of health? And now you want to actually spread your so disgusting prideness all summer long. Are they going to stop anyway? Was it something that was going to actually us in just the day after June, us, and they just stop? They just don't do it anymore. They're like, oh, wait, see you next June. Do we need to flaunt it? Do we need to actually put it up on on our buildings and our houses to show how inclusive we are and how okay it is to be so gross? Damn, Vicky. Vicky's deep and dark. She's got some ideas. She's going to actually take over the world one of these days. So, that being said, I had a fun night with y'all. Thank you all for being here. I know it's a little early. It's okay. It's okay. Everybody will be okay. You won't miss me that much. You really won't. I promise. I will be back tomorrow night. Again, I was feeling off yesterday. I kind of took myself to the point of actually feeling all right today. And I'll feel even better tomorrow. And we'll get into it. We'll get into some news and some politics tomorrow night on Shtick with Koolfrogg, right here on this channel, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time every night, except for Saturday. If you haven't done so already, take yourself to americashirtsaretfirst.com, only the most base shirts on the planet. You use promo code Koolfrogg, and you get yourself 15% off anything in the store. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button wherever you're at, whether you're here or on Rumble. Share this to all those places you like to share things, and tell them that, hey, we listen to news, we listen to politics, and right, exactly. We hang out in Discord, like Vicky T said. We hang out in Discord. Easy way to get in Discord. Go down below, hit that join button, and you can actually get into the community tab that allows. If that's too much for you, you're just not interested, and you'd still like to join us, you can get a hold of me. We can actually figure out how to actually get you in there. At Koolfrogg, almost anywhere. Love you all so very, very much. And we'll see you tomorrow for another episode. Love y'all. Later.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.